Welcome to our latest Graham Sibbald webinar. We are joined today by Salma Hathbul, who is a director within our asset services team based in London. Salma will be giving us insight and answering the key questions in relation to service charge. To get us started, Salma, can you tell us a little bit about your role within Graham Sibbald?
So my name is Salma Hathbul. I am one of the directors at Graham Sibbald, looking after asset services and property management. So manage properties from the length and breadth of the UK, from all the way from Inverness to Devon in the south of the UK.
What is a service charge in basic terms, and what does it include?
So a service charge is exactly that. A charge is a fund of money that is set aside for the maintenance of the property, and that's what it is in essence. It's for the maintenance and repairs of a property. So it's a bit of a boring topic, but rather important one for both landlords and tenants or leaseholders to have a good understanding of.
Who is responsible for the payment of a service charge?
So a service charge, the persons responsible for a service charge are the tenants, and for the purpose of this, for the purpose of this webinar, if I say tenants, I also sort of mean leaseholders, long-term leaseholders at the same time. So the tenants or leaseholders will make a contribution to the service charge. They're the ones who are responsible for the service charge, for the maintenance and upkeep of the building. However, if you have a situation where you've got a commercial property, for example, that has 3 floors, and one of the floors is vacant, the landlord will be responsible for payment of that vacant floor, because they're deemed to be in occupation until such time as a tenant is found. So a landlord can be responsible for a service charge, payment of a service charge, where there is a void, but it is usually the leaseholders and tenants of the property.
What can Graham Sibbald do to support landlords in the collection of service charge payments?
So at Graham Sibbald, we're very, very well versed with service charge provisions. So we're talking specifically about commercial service charge provisions, and that's not to say we're not versed with residential service charge provisions, but you appreciate as Graham Sibbald, our speciality is commercial properties. So Graham Sibbald, we have a number of services available for our clients. We've got a service where we can review the service charges on behalf of landlords, have those independently audited and certified, and give back the landlord the certificates after auditing. We also have situations where landlords want to retain control of their property, but they're a little bit unsure about the service charge provisions and the maintenance and upkeep of the property. So for these situations, we would inspect the properties on behalf of the landlords. We would measure them, we'll review the leases, because it's very, very key that before a service charge is set up, that it is set up in accordance with the RSCS professional statement and also in accordance with the lease. If the lease does not allow for a service charge, unfortunately, you can't have one. You can't implement one unless it is by agreement by the tenants. So at Graham Sibbald, we can set up service charges for properties that we don't manage, hand them back to the freeholders, explain to them how to run this service charge budget, and at the end of the year, audit it to make sure it's compliant with the leases and issue final certificates. As well, we also have properties where we do manage them, so we set up the service charge and manage it and procure the contracts within it to make sure that A, the building is well maintained, and B, that there's a future fund for future upkeep and repairs that may be required to this building.
If I wanted to manage my own building service charge, how could Graham Sibbald help me?
So we have a number of landlords who they want to retain the autonomy of their properties. They don't want anybody else managing them. But like I said, they're slightly unsure about what to do with the service charge. In this instance, we can work with the landlords. We can review the leases. That's the first key point. And after reviewing the leases, we can measure the properties, inspect the properties, to then set up a service charge budget that will allow the landlord to maintain and upkeep their property, but also be able to collect a fair proportion of the service charges that are due under the leases for maintaining and upkeeping their property. At the end of the year, or sometimes every quarter, what these landlords will do is send us the invoices. And at the end of the service charge year, we will independently audit the invoices to make sure that they are rechargeable to the tenants, because essentially they have to be rechargeable to the tenants. Once our auditors are satisfied that the invoices are rechargeable and are fair to the tenants, then they will issue final service charge certificates. At that point, we will then speak to the landlord, just understand that whether there's any future maintenance that they want to incorporate in the following year. And again, set up another service charge for them for the new year, and keep that rolling until at a time when they decide they don't want to manage this property themselves, or B, they are happy to continue with the service.
What are the differences between residential and commercial service charges?
So the main difference between residential and commercial service charges are the law and regulations. So there is a lot, the law is much stricter and much more prescriptive for residential service charges. So where landlords have got mixed use properties, i.e. a retail unit on the ground floor and lease and flats above that, they have to be very careful in how they set up the service charge. They have to be very careful in how they reconcile the service charge. It is a requirement that residential service charges are reconciled within 6 months. With commercial service charges, it's not as prescriptive. So it's not to say that it's not as legislative, basically. That is the main key difference, and it's very, very important that landlords understand that the limit of spend for residential properties. So where a landlord is planning to renovate a property, carry out major works on a property, or instruct a long-term agreement, i.e. a long-term agreement to have a caretaker, for example, for the property, they have to consult the leaseholders by what's referred to as a Section 20 consultation. This is absolutely key for residential properties, because if a landlord fails to carry out this consultation, their fees will be limited by the court. That is the major difference that landlords must understand, and I must emphasize that if you're really unsure, please seek professional advice. It'll be much cheaper in the long run to pay a surveyor or lawyer to advise you on this, rather than run a service charge that you then find out that you can't collect the funds, or you're very limited as to how much you can collect from leaseholders.
Why is service charge important?
So it's really key, especially in this current economy, for landlords to review their service charges and make sure that they are applicable, to make sure that they are reflective of the current status of their building. And service charges are so important because not only do they upkeep the maintenance of the building, but within a service charge, you can set up what's called a reserve fund or a sinking fund. And these funds can specifically look at collecting money for major works or major improvements, major decoration that will be required to a property in the future, in the short future, 3 to 5 years' time. So a service charge budget can allow the landlord and with the leaseholders to put aside a small amount of money each year for a major maintenance, a major decoration of a property in the future. The service charge, in terms of day-to-day, it's important. It ensures that the property is well maintained. Properties are a big investment in the UK. For some of our clients, it is their biggest investment, and in order to have the property tenanted, you need to have a well-maintained property. And so therefore a service charge budget allows a landlord to have a well-maintained property and also to future plan any improvements into the building that may be required. And again, from a leaseholder or from a tenant point of view, it sort of prevents a bitter pill at the end of a financial year. So if you're future planning and maintaining a property and you're collecting funds in a systematic manner, small amounts in a systematic manner, when you say to a leaseholder 5 years from now, we really need to decorate the whole external of the property, perhaps the roof needs repairing. If you have a reserve fund or a sinking fund in the service charge, you can use that funds, and therefore at the end of the works, you're not billing your leaseholders, you're not scaring them basically with the bill that you send to them. So in essence, you can reduce the final bill, or you can manage the final bill from £10,000s of pounds to perhaps a few £1,000s, or from a few £1,000s to a few £100s, and therefore allow for better accounting and budgeting of the property. So, like I said before, service charges are a boring topic. They're a dry topic, but they're absolutely key and important for leaseholders, landlords to understand if they want to retain a well-maintained building, a well-maintained asset, not just in the short term, but also in the long term. So it's something that I really encourage landlords and tenants to review every year at least, to make sure that what you're collecting is relevant. If you're collecting, if you've got a service charge budget where you're collecting, for example, £1,000 a year, but your expenditure is only £200 a year, then that's not fair on the tenants. You need to review it to make sure that it is current and it is relevant to the property. Otherwise, you could end up having a deteriorating asset that could have been preventable.
Thank you, Salma, for your time to talk us through all things service charge. For more information on the full service offering by the Graham Sibbald Asset Services team, please visit our website at www.g-s.co.uk. We are Graham Sibbald, delivering more and caring more.